Hey guys, um, I am gonna share with you a testimony. I'm really so excited about this. Um, this is how I knew that the Lord was calling me away from my job, and then what followed after that. Um, this will help you, I think, because I know that there's people that the Lord is trying to pull you away from your job. This isn't for everybody, so you have to take this word back to the Lord. But it is for some people, and it can be really difficult to tell because obviously it's a really scary and illogical decision. So you really want to be smart about this and wise actually, really. So I'm going to give the testimony, and then I'm going to talk about some key signs to look for to know that God is calling you away from your job versus you just hate your job. But before I get into it, I just have to share this really exciting thing. Okay, this looks really plain, I know, but this is my newest book, ALDR. I think it's backwards. And this is actually a part of the testimony as to why God called me away from my job. It's not the whole thing, but it's part of it. So it is now available on Amazon for a reduced price of like four something, I think. And I'm only gonna keep it that way for this day, and then the price is gonna go up. But this book, if you've seen me talk about it on my page before, it's a love poem book, but it's about God's love and our relationship with Him, or my relationship with Him more specifically. ALDR stands for a long distance relationship. And so as it starts out, it's just very like, oh, looks like there's nothing there. It's just very normal. Um, you know, you think it's just a love poem book. And then as you go on, you start to see, oh, well, this is a different kind of love. And at the end of it, I really feel like I basically came to realize that God was always there, and at times it feels like a long distance relationship. At times God feels very, very distant. And typically when you're going through something, and I talk about that, it's all poems, but I talk about that in here. But looking back at it now, I realize, oh, he was there. His silence doesn't mean his absence. Interesting. So check it out if you would like to. I'd appreciate it. And um yeah. So anyways, let me just get into it. So the Lord called me from away from my job actually twice. I don't know if I'm going to share both. It depends on how long this testimony is. So the first time it happened was in 20 2023. I've been working at this point I was 26, I think. 25, 26, something like that. And I've been working, and I really enjoyed my job. I actually didn't have any issues with it. I was working as like an in-store shopper, so basically like Instacart people, but like just for my store. And I loved it. I connected with people, like, they knew me by name. I could help like pretty much anyone find anything in the store because I knew everything in the store. So I was loving it. But I knew obviously it wasn't going to be what I wanted to do with my entire life. And I always wanted to move on, but I didn't know what that would look like. Prior to that, I should actually mention that I was working, I worked both like lower level kind of like entry jobs similar to that before, but I also worked like in the healthcare industry, professional kind of jobs. And every single time something would happen, the Lord, but something would happen to where it's just like I couldn't continue there. And only once had I ever been fired. So it it was like, what? This is weird. So I had already known that this was like a pattern, and I've kept that in my mind, but I didn't make any sense of it, to be perfectly honest. But I'll come back to this point later because it's important. So anyways, I was working at my job thinking, nothing of it, but there was kind of this weird shift where I started to realize, like, I started to kind of get into drama. And it was weird. And the drama wasn't like, oh, I'm, talking about this person, that, but it wasn't anything like that. It was just me just being there started to attract a level of like weirdness, weird drama. Like us with this is gonna sound a little bit bad, but with the dudes at my work. And I'm like, this is weird. I'm uncomfortable with this. So I was like, okay, this is weird, whatever. But I like my job. I have this benefit. I have that benefit. I'm gonna stick with it. I didn't think anything of it. Um, but what started to happen a little bit after that drama was there was just this unsettled feeling that something was really off. The best way I could describe it is just I just felt like I wasn't where I was supposed to be. Like it was just like something was really like amiss, and I couldn't determine what it was because I knew my emotions, I knew my feelings didn't align with this overall looming feeling of something is weird, something is not right here. I would go into work and all like out of nowhere all of a sudden I would feel like I really don't want to be here, but I don't know why because I really enjoy it. Um it made no kind of sense, and I felt really like it happened just like that, and it was like almost the energy and the zeal to go there just was just gone, like just absolutely gone, and I couldn't make sense of it. So I kind of sat with that feeling for a while, and I'm like, could this possibly be the Lord speaking to me? Because there's nothing in it that's rooted in logic that it's like, oh yeah, like I'm having issues with my boss. Like the drama kind of, it was still kind of going on, but it wasn't like I was going home and being upset. It was just like, okay, that's like that over there. And then I focus on my job and I go home. Like I didn't, it wasn't anything more than that for me. So I was just really confused about that. But I mean, this feeling, it was really, really heavy too. It wasn't like something that was super easy to brush off. So I sat with it for maybe like a few weeks or so. Not very long because it was so uncomfortable and it felt like it was just getting worse and worse, but long enough for me to like say, maybe it's just me just being lazy or something like that. I don't know. But the more I started thinking about it, the more I started to feel like God might be telling me to move away from my job. Like this is really this thought that I can't get over, that this might be what needs to happen. So I don't actually I can't remember, to be honest. Lord help me, if I prayed or what happened. I wasn't as close with the Lord as I am now, but I want to say I'm sure I did pray. Yes, I started to pray because it started to become such a heavy feeling that I started to feel uncomfortable. It was just like, it was almost as if I was there in body only. And I think I told a few, oh, that's what it was. I told my manager or whatever I would like to go on like like a little leave of like, can you take me off the schedule for like 2 or 3 days or something like that? And that became like this big issue. I don't know why. And then I said, well, what about like if I just go on leave? Like, and of course my bosses were trying to like figure out like why would you do that? And like I get that. And I don't remember exactly what I said to them. Um but I think like there were so many issues with me even trying to go on the leave that I ended up just saying, okay, you know what? Never mind. Like there's a possibility that I might need to like I might need to reconsider working here, and I'll tell you more details about it. Because it wasn't coming from a place of hostility or anything like that. So yeah, that's right. I went back and forth with him for like with like trying to figure out a plan for me for like I don't know how long, but I tried several times. So, you know, probably a couple weeks because I would only work like 2 or 3 shifts a week. So, yeah. And I just remember like, they were trying to well, a few of them tried to talk to me because they really liked me and I liked them, and it was just like what exactly is going on here, but it was so difficult to explain. I just did not have the words for it. So eventually I just said like, look, this is a spiritual thing. Like I don't think that I can continue here. And I had one boss that supported me, and I was just like really shocked by that. And then I had another boss that she was like, well, I don't think that God would remove you from a place and not tell you where to go next. And I was like, that's not that's not how he's come through for me before. Like normally he gives me one instruction, and then upon my obedience within that one instruction, he gives me another. And I believe that this is pretty indicative of how he speaks in general, but I know that's how he's spoken to me. So, um yeah, I was just like having such a difficult time with this. I don't really remember how long this lasted, which I wish I did, because I feel like that's kind of important. Like how long this feeling lasted and just how it just got worse and worse. But like I say, eventually it was as if like my mind, heart, everything was just absent. Like I was very not present while I was there, only physically. And eventually I went to the Lord and I'm like, okay, I believe that you're telling me that I need to leave. I don't know why. I actually was like, I'm gonna get me a better job. That's what's gonna happen here. Um, but I believe I need to leave. And I went back and forth with God on that, and I'm like, maybe it's just my feelings. And clear as day, again, I don't remember exactly like how long after the first time that he started speaking to me um was this event, but I was fulfilling an order, doing an order, and the Lord speaks to me. I believe it was audibly, if I'm not mistaken. If it wasn't, it was very, 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 very clear on my spirit. It was kind of hard to tell. There is a difference, but it was very clear, and I ended up stopping in my tracks. That's why I kind of think that it might have been audible, because it really shook me up. More so than like, not that his normal communication doesn't, but like it just, I mean, really, like physically, I just felt like, oh, I can't move on. And the Lord said, if you, what did he say? If you stay here, it will not go well for you. And his voice is so booming and loud. Yeah, I guess it was audible. Yeah, I think so. And it's so like if you stay here, it will not go. But not like threatening, though. Not threatening, just very like authoritative, very like my word is, and I'm like, okay, this is scary. So after that, I said, okay, yeah, he was speaking to me. I gotta move on. But I really didn't want to. And so after that, was it after that or before that? Oh, I can't remember. I'm sorry. I can't remember if it was after or before that. It seems like it would be before, but maybe it was after. Just to make absolute sure, I said, Lord, if you really spoke to me, give me my last date and make it make sense. Like, make it be on a date that makes sense. So, what I meant by that was like, I don't want, my last date to be like a Monday or like a Wednesday, something like in the middle of the week. Like, it either needs to be like Friday or Sunday or something like that, that makes the most sense. Or Saturday. Um, so I prayed, and I remember he gave me a date, and I thought, nah, this I'm sure like there's nothing to this, like it's just me or something. So see, you can really discount the voice of the Lord very, very easily, um if you're not really in tune with the things of him. But anyways, so I brushed it off. But then I'm like, you know what? I did ask him that. So let me look up that date. That date ended up being a Friday. And I was like, what? That's crazy. Okay, I guess I have to uphold my side of the bargain. Um, and I find it really interesting that he said, like, if you stay, it will not go well. Like, he was already putting it out there that I needed to move on, but I was hesitant for several reasons. But he wasn't forcing me to leave, but he was letting me know what was up, what was to come, because it wasn't in his will for me to stay. So after that, I put in my date, and it was really, really difficult for me, but I did it. And on the last day, I ended up like going around and like, saying bye to everyone. And I think I went out and stuff and hung out with people, and it was just, yeah, it was a whole thing. But I had to do what I had to do. And I knew that God had something for me. Now, what I thought he had for me was not what he actually had for me. So I was like, all right, bring on that new job, bring on that, like, nice 9 to 5. Because, like I said, I was only working like 2 or 3 days out of the week typically. So I'm like, let's do it. And he sits me down, because I remember like the first day of unemployment, I'm like, what do I do with myself? Like, this is really weird. I don't like this. I sit down with him and I'm like, what's next, Lord? If you call me here, you better instruct me, because I don't know what to do. What's next? And at this point, I think I had started writing this book. This book. I started writing it. Um, um, he reminded me again, he said, write the book. I had started, but I abandoned it. Because I'm like, no one's going to read this. Like, whatever. This isn't going to do very well. I still want to write it, but And I'm like, write the book. Write the book. I was like, okay. So, I go and I write the book. And there's some really amazing things that happen afterwards. But it's all interconnected, and it's not going to mean that much in the here and the now. So I'm going to have to stop the story there. But if you are curious, there is another, I think it's in my testimonies, I'm not sure, but I did a video. Is it in my testimonies? I'm not sure, but it's titled "The Lord Got Me Into an Exclusive Concert." I think it's still up. Hopefully I didn't delete it. I might have actually deleted it, to be honest, but that's tied to that and it's tied to something bigger. But I can't get into all of that right now. So anyways, that's pending, right? So I'm stopping the story there. And yes, he did have stuff for me to do after I finished the book, because it didn't take me very long to do that. Um, and then part of them is in that other story that I shared about the concert thing. Um, I know, I'm sorry, it's kind of elusive and all over the place, but you'll see. And then he had me do a whole lot of like inner work. He had me do I had to be pruned a lot for what he wanted me to do. And actually, the beautiful thing is, so that was in April, late April. And then he had me prepare for something. He had me prepare. And the next year, the opportunity for me to do that thing came about. When I talk about moving, that's part of it. And that wouldn't have happened, wouldn't have worked had he not pruned me for it that year, that 2023 year when he called me away from him. Called me away from my job, sorry. And I'm like, oh my gosh, wow, I never even noticed that if I hadn't prepared, I would have had a really, it wouldn't even have been able to happen. So what I needed to do for the next year was indicative of me listening to him the year prior, the year 2023. What I needed to do in 2024, he wanted to work out in me in 2023. So that's why I say it's a lot of like pending stuff, but there's even more to it, but I'm not going to get into that. But yes, I had to get a whole lot of stuff rooted out of me, a whole lot of him rooted into me to be able to handle myself when I moved briefly, where I moved with the assignment that he had me do. So anyways, and I also wouldn't have been able to do that if I was working, you know. So, I find that interesting as well. So let me share the second testimony and then I'm going to get into some of the ways you can tell, kind of unpacking the story a little bit. So, ways you can tell if God's calling you from your job. So, the next time, this one's interesting. So, I had worked this was late 2024. I had worked in a kitchen, and I also, okay, no, I hated it at first. I absolutely hated it. Oh my gosh, I threw a tantrum. I was like, I've worked in more professional environments than this. Why am I here? Like, just totally like, girl, just be grateful. Anyways, eventually I learned to love it. I can't be too like negative, to be honest. I'm just not like that. So I really did love it, and I fell in love with that job, with the people that were there, everything. There was amazing perks and everything. So I mean, I'm in a kitchen, so I always get food, right? So I was really feeling that job. I got it late September. No, mid-September. However, oh, I should read to you my journal. Well, nah. Um, 'Cause I don't know where it is. But I ended up starting to feel that same feeling. It started off with the feeling of I'm like not here. I don't know why, but there's just like this blockage, this distance that I can't explain, like mentally and emotionally, where I'm just absent. And since it had been familiar to me, got a check in my spirit, and I'm like, I hope this isn't it. This isn't what he's saying again. Now, actually, now I'm thinking about it, I don't think that was the first alert in my spirit that what the Lord was saying. I wish I had my dream journal so I could read it to you. It was written in October something. I know because I just recently read it, but the Lord gave me a dream. And in the dream, just to share it briefly, I was in a car and I was going to this really beautiful and new place, but there was a resident, because I worked in a kitchen at a retirement home type place. There was a resident that was in the car with me, and um I've been studying dream interpretation a lot, so I'm like, okay, I know this is from God. I just don't 100% know what it means. So had the dream, woke up, felt troubled in my spirit, wrote it down, prayed about it. And I had an idea. I said, the weird part about this is that, I'm going to this place, but there's this resident with me. That's not how that should be, right? So I interpret it as, I believe that the Lord is telling me I need to move on, and I'm holding on to this place. Now, mind you, I got the job mid-September, September 16th. This is late October that he's telling me this. I'm like, there's no way. No way. So even though I interpreted it correctly the first time, I said, nah, like maybe what he's saying is I need to hold on to the job so that he can bring me to the new place. He wants me to show like humility and gratefulness and all this stuff. I'm on board. I'm with it. I had it right the first time. And like I feel like deep down I honestly knew it, but I was just like, nah. I still kind of had this attitude that if it's the Lord's will, he'll just like make it happen, which is flawed. It's completely flawed. But yeah, I think it was like October, like I can't remember, but it was late October when I had this dream. So I'm like, yeah, this can't be, because I've only been here a month, or yeah, a little over a month. So I brushed it off, to be honest. But the feeling, it once again, it started to grow. I started to get super uncomfortable. But for some reason it was really easy for me to brush it off. Like I don't know why this time. It was like really like I just I don't know, I just didn't want to hear it. So he gave me another similar dream. And I'm like, "Dang, this is getting weird. This is a little bit too weird." And once again the feeling got worse. And I started to be like, okay, I don't know if I can like brush this off, continue to brush this off. Like I think I need to like really just make sure and then lean in on what the Lord is saying, what I think the Lord is saying. Sorry, I'm trying to remember the series of events. So I started to feel that weird feeling where I wasn't there, and it got worse. And then here's the interesting thing. Because I was resistant this time, but I knew, like, I was at least 50% sure, if not more sure, that the Lord wanted me to leave because of the time prior. But I don't know what was wrong with me. I just was disobedient, and I was just like, I just don't like want to do this. Like, if this is the case, like, you need to tell me clearly. Like, that was kind of my thing. My petition to God, and it was just like, but you already know the answer. Like, what are you doing? We put ourselves into confusion. We absolutely do, by trying to like work ways around it, just like I did the time prior. So this time, it didn't take very long from the time that he spoke to me in a dream and I started to have that feeling to things progressing in a very negative way. Um, but I remember my last couple of shifts where the Lord had already spoken to me. There was this I mean, it was like I could not get over this idea. You are not supposed to be here. You are not supposed to be here. Like it felt like, I don't know how to explain it, but it was just very pervasive. I'm just like, I don't want to believe this. Like I'm so happy and just I'm sad. Anyways, so after that, things got really, really bad. I was in this really weird position in my job where I was like, I guess like swing shift or like middle shift or something like that, where I wasn't there exclusively in the mornings or the evenings. I was there for both. And I swear it was meant to be like that. Like it was meant to just so things could go so bad for me. So without going into too much details, oh my God, I'm sorry. I forgot to mention that it was really difficult for me to get this job and I had been unemployed for a while, so I was really also trying to hang on to it. And it was difficult because the schedule was like 4 days on, 2 days off. So my schedule was never like the same. I could never count on, okay, I'm not going to be here, I'm going to be here, whatever the case is. And that messed with my church schedule. And I remember I almost like walked away because I was like, and I was also in Bible study too, so I was like, okay, well, I don't think I can do this, but it was God who got me into the job too, by the way, because literally, I'm sorry, I just remembered all of this. When I was interviewing, there was someone, my boss had to call the person whose job it already was, like, or I'm sorry, they had interviewed and they were waiting for some documents to come through and they were supposed to start, but my documents were ready to go. So he's like, okay, I guess I gotta call this person and tell them, like, sorry, the job isn't for you anymore. And I got the job and I'm just like, I'm sorry, that to me was God, because um when does that happen? How does that happen? And it wasn't just, I mean, it wasn't just that. It was also the fact that, too, I had tried so hard to get work, and I'm like, this just doesn't make any sense because I'm a hard worker. Like, I pretty much stay at all the places, well, to the best of my ability that I can. Like, this doesn't make any sense. Um, I had the hardest time. In addition to that, when I went in uh, for the job, they actually told me that there wasn't any availability for the job that I applied for. So I almost left then and there, but then I said, you know what, do you have anything? And they're just like, oh, we have this. But I wasn't supposed to get that job because it was supposed to be for someone else. And I think about Esther, you know, like God moved Vashti out of the way so Esther could take the place. And that's how I felt in that moment, because I'm like, this is crazy that like all this aligned together so perfectly. Um, if I had been a day off, that other person their documents might have came through, but I just believed that the Lord was with me. Plus, I had also prayed about it too, so I knew like if he was sending me, like the door would open, that's how he has been with me, how he had been with me, that it's just like, well, you know, whatever he has for me, I'm gonna get. Whatever he has for you, you're gonna get. But anyways, okay, sorry for the deviation. So I had been in this weird middle shift, and the thing with that was that I seemed to be working like the longest hours because in the evening crew, they weren't very, I would just say, dedicated to being there. So they were very, I had to pick up the slack a lot. It was as if I had to like do my job and theirs. And I was really like not feeling that. In addition to that, things wouldn't get done like necessarily exactly how they should have, especially if I didn't do them. So I would hear about it in the morning by the person who came in the morning, and she absolutely hated, just hated us all, to be perfectly real with you. It was such an uncomfortable vibe. So my days started to look like where I would come in the morning and I'd have to listen to her talk about this wasn't right, that wasn't right, blah, 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 blah. And then in the evening, I would have to not only do their job, but often stay half an hour, 2 hours even, just to try and do the bare minimum of getting stuff done. Because I would also have to pull their weight as well. I got so tired of this. Now, you would think that that alone might be like, oh, well, of course you wanted to leave. No, no, no. It didn't start out that way. It like did for a little tiny bit, but then I don't know. Like I just see it as maybe God's favor was just with me because it was like all of a sudden it just wasn't an issue. Like for so I started in September. October and November, it wasn't as much of an issue. Like it was fine. And the reason why I say I feel like God's favor was with me was because also I noticed that with the residents, there were some residents that like just had no patience with us, with any of us. There was not a single resident by the time that I got to like the ending of my time there. There was not a single resident that didn't greet me with a smile, that didn't love on me, anything. And to me, that is God's favor. To me, that is the Joseph moment. Like, you know, like he had favor wherever he went. There was a few residents that were particularly known for being very disgruntled, and people did not want to wait on them, did not want to talk, did not want to serve them. And I felt it too at first, but then something shifted. So I felt that God's favor was seriously with me for more than one reason, because I was able to, you know, hopefully bring some joy there and help people and all this stuff. And it was just it was really great, and I started to really love it. But there was this overwhelming feeling that I needed to leave, and then there was this little thorn in my side, so to speak, about this weird shift that I'm at or in, where I want to go home. You know, I don't want to work like 10, 12 hours on my feet all day, every day, you know, getting called in on my days off, all this stuff. Like I don't mind working hard, and you have to if you're going to work for the Lord, but you know, I don't like it when it just feels like I'm being taken advantage of, or it's just, you know, useless. I'm just toiling, you know. And so that position, I would love if God gave me a whole download on it. He probably won't, but that position I think was really supposed to be like that, because it put me in this perfect place where the pressure was just really, really on. And so I said, around the time the Lord gave me that dream, late October, I asked if I could be like, if I could be taken off the schedule for like 3 or 4 days, because I just couldn't take it. I was so stressed out about that aspect of the job. Um, Man, that was I'm sorry. I'm like remembering that also like a lot of people would always I didn't think I was the best worker, but they would always notice me too, which also felt like the favorite thing. Like they would always be willing to help me, like it, and that's the Lord. That's nothing but the Lord's presence with me. But anyways, so yeah, so I was in this weird place and it just the pressure got worse. The person that came in the morning got more and more like bothered and upset. It got more difficult for me to do my job and the other person's job and all this. Actually, at this point, I said, look, we have to figure out something so that I'm not staying here half an hour to 2 hours after my shift. This just isn't okay. I'm tired. I want to go home. This isn't right and this isn't fair. Um, and so we decided that I would have to leave at exactly the time that I got off. Like I would have to. And my boss said, if things don't get done, we'll know it's because of them. Do you think that that stuck? Maybe in a normal situation where God wasn't trying to remove me from it, remove you from a place, but no, that didn't stuck. That didn't stick, sorry. So I just ended up getting blamed. I got blamed for things not being right in the morning. I got blamed for things being not right in the evening. I got blamed even though I had to leave. It's like, well, I had to leave. That's on them. Well, no, you should have been more like whatever. You should have told them what to do, blah blah blah. And I'm like, that's not even my job. Like, I'm sorry, but I'm not getting paid for that. Like, I'll help people out, but I'm not gonna do anybody's work for them. Like that. Ooh, that made me so mad because my boss was like, I see what's happening, but I don't really care to do anything about it. So I was really bothered by that. And I'm like, this is something because this just isn't right. It's like literally there was nothing I could do that was right. And everything just started falling apart. Like, and it was difficult for me to actually get my work done. There was tension in the kitchen like crazy. Someone got injured. So it ended up being where now there was one man down, so now it's even more pressure on the few of us that are there. And I was just like, I am not feeling this. And just to throw this out there too, I was getting some of that familiar drama with um a dude at work, and it was becoming like kind of an issue. And I'm like, okay, this you know this is kind of a problem. I actually talked about this as a little bit of a deviation. I talked about this in one of my videos. I was talking about, I think, a spirit of lust, and I'm not gonna lie, the attention, it felt good because I'm like, I'm lonely. I want this attention, yeah. But the Holy Spirit stopped me and showed me, you know, or no, what was it? I had said I recognized that it felt good, but I knew it was wrong. But I didn't know exactly like how to understand like that I was wrong, I suppose, like not fully anyways. And the Lord spoke to me and basically said like how he's looking at you, it's the same spirit of lust. How he's speaking to you, how he's thinking of you is the same spirit of lust in general. That's behind, you know, anything that has to do with someone acting out in lust. Anything from cheating to assault, like everything within there. I don't mean to deviate, but I thought that that was really powerful and important because I'm like, oh my gosh, it is the same spirit, isn't it? I don't know why I didn't like make that connection. So, anyways, so at this point, I'm like, nah, I'm not continuing here. Y'all are crazy. Literally, mentally, I felt like I was like unraveling because it was just no one. I was just, I mean, it literally felt like that moment probably when Joseph was accused for something that he didn't do. It's like there was nothing, even though there was nothing that they actually would blame me for, I still got the blame for it. And I said, this doesn't make any sense. Like, you're not holding these other people to any sort of standard or accountability. It's on me, but it's not my job. I'm not the manager. And my boss like kept flipping it and saying like, well, it's not your job, but I put you in this position so that you could be. And I'm like, there we go, confession. I forgot he said that actually. Anyways, so whatever. I was like, y'all are nuts. I'm out. But I handled it, like how I should have. I put in my 2 weeks. Um, I put in my 2 weeks. But here's the thing. Because the enemy started speaking to me, whatever, I was like, maybe I don't really want to leave, maybe I just need to like wait it out, whatever. And I ended up, let's see, first I went on call schedule. And I did that for like 2 weeks or so. But I just knew like something was still off about it. And then I said, you know what? Let me just be reduced. Let me just do part time. And then, things just got worse. Like it was just everyday tension, just everything worse. And then eventually one day when I was like really just sitting with the idea that, oh my gosh, I'm disobedient again, I said, Lord, like, show me a sign if you really want me to leave, because my job is my security. Like, I don't want to leave that. And he said to me, this wasn't audible, it was on my spirit, but very like with verbatim words, obviously it was very clear. He said, I'm your security. I was like, oh, okay. No words to that. And I just said, okay, I have to put in my 2 weeks, like, or not 2 weeks. Sorry, I have to say I'm sorry. That my last shift was my last shift, and that's it. I had never been so humbled in my life so immediately. I said, my job is my security. He said, I'm your security. And the worst part was that's not the first time he's told me something like that. There was another time when it was after I had left my job. The first time I started to freak out about money, and he said that to me. So anyways, um, so eventually I left, and after that, he told me of several things I needed to prepare for, not just one, but several. One of them was that I knew he wanted me to speak on here. I knew that he had ministry work for me. I didn't know what that was and what that would look like. I wasn't as confident in what he has given me, excuse me, and in myself as I am now. But he didn't, actually tell me this, but I just knew by the Spirit he was releasing me to ministry. I think actually maybe he did in a dream. He did actually tell me that he was going to be at least elevating me spiritually, and that this needed to be a major focus of mine. And I'm like, ooh, okay. And I just have to share that, there have been some really amazing things that have come out of this. He's shown me some things, taught me some things, to where there's a confidence that I walk in now, and I'm really grateful for, where I know if he wants me to pray for something or for someone, there will be a change in that situation. I've prayed for several people. This has been over the course of, I guess, this year, I think. Maybe a little bit last year too, but where healing was needed. Oh my gosh, I totally forgot about, there was this one resident that her husband needed healing. He had a wound and it needed healing. And these are all older people, so they all have no offense, they all have something going on, and any of the stories could pull on my heart if I let it. But I said, this is special. I need to pray for this. I need to intercede. She came back to me like a few days later and she said, "Oh my gosh, your prayers are working." By the way, I didn't know she was a Christian or anything like that. I just was like, you know what? Look, I don't know what you believe in, but I'm going to pray for you. Okay? I just have to. She's like, "You wouldn't believe it. His wound is healing. It was this big old thing for the longest time, and all of a sudden it's starting to go." And I'm like, it's not me, it's the Lord, but praise the Lord. But yeah, I had several stories of people needing healing, um and prayer for them, and the situation happening, the situation getting better, them being healed completely. So that happened. Um, he's elevated me spiritually. That has happened. He's given me an utterance. This came like maybe a month or so ago, but he's given me an utterance by his spirit that is just like, okay, I don't even know sometimes what I'm saying, because it's so above my pay grade that it's not my words, that's for sure. I don't know. Like, it's not my words. And a whole bunch has come out of this, but one of the most beautiful things is that, for you guys who are watching here, he told me that it was going to be like this, that he was going to elevate me in ministry. And I mean, overnight, it seems like he's given me the word, and it's fed some people, and people tell me, and it's so encouraging. So I find that really, really beautiful. Prior to that, I had this, I had this page up, and my subscriber count just stayed where it was at for months, for years even, actually, because it wasn't my time yet. So anyways, I was really, really in awe of that. And then the other thing, so I had to do a lot of preparation. I had to go through some more pruning, and that's the ministry side of it. There's other things that I won't disclose, but then of course there's also the book. And he told me, like, look, you're going to be working for me. This is how you're going to make your money. Do the art stuff. So I had an opportunity to really, like, start and not start, but grow my Patreon online, and I'll talk about that maybe a little bit more later. But for now, the content that I do on it is just poetry, but I might do music and photography and other stuff. But that's what he told me will be how I'll make money, which is going to be kind of interesting because the rise of AI and everything, and just the times that we live in. But I trust him. I do trust him. So, um, yeah, that's my testimony. Like, I know more is coming, more is gonna happen. I'm gonna have a bigger testimony, but that's where it is right now, and it's amazing to me. You don't necessarily know why the Lord says do this or do that, but there is a reason. And while this might not be huge or big to most people, I can see where this is headed, and I'm really, really humbled and just in awe of what the Lord has done with me in within these past couple of months even. So I'm gonna try and get through this quickly because I'm tired. But some signs you can look for if the Lord is calling you away from your job. So number one, there needs to be you you might not know exactly why. Well, okay, first of all, let me back up. You need to be prayerful. You need to be someone who's prayerful. Um because you need to make sure that you have like what I like to call spiritual receipt. You have something that it's like, okay, he absolutely said blah blah blah. There's no way around it. Um, I forgot to mention something. When I left my first job after he told me, it was my last day. I run into this lady. We're speaking, blah blah blah, and I'm trying to just get my work done because I had a lot to do. She and I are talking. I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever. Kind of honestly brushing off a little bit. Sorry. Um, and all of a sudden she starts saying something like, well, I don't know why you're leaving, but all that matters is what we do for the Lord. Like, that's all that matters in this life. Like, nothing else really matters. And I was like, what? Sorry. I was just like, what? That was so out of pocket. Like, just crazy. Just how is it that the Lord. Okay. Anyways, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I almost didn't even come in today." I'm like, "Well, I'm so glad that you did. Thank you for that blessing." Anyways, so you need to be prayerful. You need to have like some sort of direct communication that says, "Okay, I know that this was the Lord. I know that he told me this." Because you have to have something to stand on, you know? Faith is what is it? The substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. It's substance, the substance of things hoped for. That means that there is something. Faith is, I'm sorry, not to like come against anyone, but faith is not blind. Faith is a communication from God that, or how should I say this? Faith is, you don't fully see it, but you know that God is with you. You know that he's going to work it out. You know that he's communicated on some level. Blind faith is the reason why people just look crazy and God told me to give my house away and go live in a forest for 3 years and blah blah blah. Like, no 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 no. You have to have a communication from God. He doesn't operate just based off of, you know, whimsy. He just doesn't. It might not look logical to the carnal mind, but there is a logical pattern of things of the spirit, of communications of the spirit. And that's how you'll know if it's God or if it's just my mind or something like that. So there's a pattern to follow. So faith has substance attached to it, and you need to have a spiritual receipt where you know that this is the direct communication from him. What I was experiencing that I didn't know until later when I felt really distant from the job, and like it was like I wasn't there fully. What I was experiencing was his lack of grace and him communicating that, you know, this is not the place that I've had for you, that I have for you, sorry. His lack of grace. He started to remove his favor and his grace for me to be in that area, and that's why things started to fall apart. And that's why in the first example, he said to me, if you stay, it will not go well for you because things will just fall apart. Because as soon as his grace has left, as soon as his favor has left, you are now very, very vulnerable. Vulnerable to the enemy, vulnerable to whatever. Like, he's not there anymore. He's omnipresent, but he's also not there anymore. It's kind of difficult to explain, but There are some places where his grace is there, his favor is there, and there's just some where it's not. And that's different from his presence. That's different from him just being able to be there, if that makes sense. Um, so that's what I was experiencing. Um, and I wish I had known that. I wish I had understood that that's what he was trying to communicate. There was a lack of grace. And yeah, I mean, when you start having problems left and right when everything has been pretty much okay, like, you're like, this is weird. Yeah, it's because a lack of grace. His grace sustains all things. So as soon as there's a situation that's just incredibly chaotic, bad, whatever, you know that his hand has been lifted from it. Now, I just said something that wasn't completely correct because I said when something is bad. So this is why you need to have a communication from him to know exactly if it's from him or not, because there are times when the enemy can start trying you and you'll start to feel bad and you'll be like, oh, I don't know if I should be staying here anymore. I don't know if I want to work here anymore. And it's actually the enemy sending attacks. So you need to know the difference between the enemy sending attacks and the hand of God being lifted or him frustrating the situation so you'll get out of it. Another thing to keep in mind, with his grace and his favor leaving, this is true for that, for his communications, for his blessings. You can miss the hand of God by not being spiritually sensitive enough, spiritually aware enough. You can miss his communications from, I mean, that was a communication. Him removing his grace was a communication. You will miss the hand of God if you're not sensitive enough. He'll be over, you'll think, oh, I'm right where I need to be. And he's already going ahead of you, like, come on, let's go. You're done. Oh, by the way, later, one day I was having like a little bit of anxiety because I was like, I don't want to be in this house. Like, I don't want to be here. At least let me work. At least let me go here, blah, blah, blah. Via my other videos. You can find out more about that if you watch my some of my later uploads. But he said to me once, it was never, how do you say it? You were never meant to stay there or something like that. Or it was always meant to be temporary. Oh, and I forgot. Oh my gosh. So in addition to that, the day that he told me that I needed to get a job and that I got that job, he also gave me another instruction. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would you tell me two different instructions? Like, obviously something is amiss. And then I remembered later when he said it was always meant to be temporary or something like that, that, oh my gosh, that's why he gave me two instructions, because he didn't want me to hold on to one so much so that I couldn't see what else he wanted to do with me. And I'm like, dang, that's deep. Okay. Anyways, so you need to have that spiritual receipt. You need to be prayed up. You need to be spiritually sensitive. You need to have how do I say this? If the Lord is calling you from your job, there is work to do. Don't get it twisted. Don't think like, "Ooh, I'm gonna chill." No, not at all. In fact, actually working for the Lord, I work almost harder because there is no schedule. There is no day off. When in this video, I still have to make sure like I'm good spiritually so that I can hear from him, so that I can speak. So there's a whole lifestyle like involved with this. It's not just, one little thing. So he's going to put you to work. You might not exactly know, like I thought like, okay, he's going to give me a better job or something like that. I didn't know exactly what he had for me to do, but I knew he had something for me to do. I knew he wasn't just going to authorize me just sitting there. Just no. So you might not know exactly what he has for you, but you should have an idea of something that he's tried to communicate with you before. Going back to the point that I said earlier, where I said I had been at jobs and it just, for some reason, something always seemed to come up where I couldn't stay there. That was also a communication of God, which I did not understand. He was trying, since I first started working, to get me in alignment with the things of Him so that I wasn't just toiling just because, just trying to get in the rat race just because this is what you do. I had that mentality at one point, and he's like, I have something better for you. I have something for you that's not for you. And so my entire life from 18 to 26 was me in and out of jobs, in and out of jobs, in and out of jobs, with no real logical reason other than the one time that I got fired. No real logical reason as to why. Obviously, the last couple of times he told me to leave, but prior to that, I didn't realize what was going on. And if I had been aware, and actually, I was a little bit aware because I did say, Lord, like, you need to take over because this is just ridiculous. Like, I don't understand why I'm having such a difficult time with this. Why, like, all these weird scenarios keep coming up. Like, COVID really messed that up for me, and I just blamed it on that. But I wish I really realized that he was trying to get me aware of him, quite frankly. Just get me aware of him and not be so all over the place, not trying to do things on my own or whatever. So this pattern already made me kind of a little bit aware that this was an issue, but I couldn't put one and one together. It wasn't until afterwards, it wasn't until now that I realized, oh, you never wanted me in that place in the first place. To be honest, a lot of you, this is a word for, maybe not a lot of you, many of you, maybe. Take it back to the Lord. I don't know. I'm not a prophet. A lot of you might be in the wrong job. Maybe it's not that he doesn't want you to work the 9 to 5, but you're in the wrong job. If you have dissatisfaction with your job and consequently your life, you're in the wrong place. If you're just doing it just because, the bills got to be paid, you're probably in the wrong place. My advice to you would be to sit with the Lord and ask Him His plans for you. Because guess what? This is what I have found out to be true. And people who, have similar gifting, prophetic unction, whatever, understand this to be true. Whatever God has for you, it's literally for you. It won't be easy, but there will be a grace that is naturally there with you, for you to just have ease in doing whatever He's set out for you, if that makes sense. So, like, it won't come without problems or struggles or anything like that, but it will be a whole lot easier than anything you'll do outside of God's will. It will bring you a satisfaction. Like right now, I'm like, Lord, I hope you really did speak to me about this book or about, me doing poetry and making a business out of it or something, because I'm not feeling too good about this because I'm not making any money. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna have to trust you because this does not feel good. It does not feel good. It's not my own plans, my own desires. It's honestly a very unfavorable position, but I trust the Lord. But anyways, the reason why there's dissatisfaction is because you're not doing what you're actually meant to be doing. Whatever area He has you in, wants you in, whatever, it will come with such a satisfaction that even though I'm not making the money I'd like to, and there's certain things that I had to give up and everything, and I had always been used to, because I went from job to job, I'd always been used to kind of that Well, just like a good work ethic of just, always giving like 110% and all that stuff. So I'm like, yeah, this ain't it. I'm not feeling this too much. So, um, but at the same time, it's like, no, this makes perfect sense for me. It's difficult to get over that mental roadblock of like, how is this gonna work? But it's like, no, this absolutely makes sense for me. This makes sense for me. And I'm actually being reminded of in 2019, I went on this I was with a friend, and I told her, "Man, I really just feel like I just want to do poetry as a job. Like I want to like find a way, like, create stickers, do like quotes, like whatever I need to do, anything and everything relating to getting my poetry out there, my work out there." And I just said, it's like gnawing at me. Like it's so, but I know that logically there's no way for me to do that. Like it doesn't make any money. You don't make any money. And it took me so long to realize what the Lord had already been speaking to me all this time, that it's like, no, this is the door that I have for you. I don't get it. I don't understand it at all. It feels scary, but if I had only realized what he was saying sooner. Oh my gosh. And it totally just, it makes sense for me. It makes total sense for me. There's, like I say, there's a grace that goes along with it, that it's just like, oh yeah. Like the very fact that, and this could be for you too, I've only published now two official books, like full length books on Amazon, but I've written uh several um shorter length books are on my Patreon page, but I've written several, and I can just continue to write and write and write. Like there's no real writer's block for me. And I realized like, oh, that's a part of what the Lord like has put in me. So there is no like issue with it. It's what I'm supposed to do. But I'm saying all that to say, like, do what you are supposed to be doing, and it won't be work. You'll be exactly where you need to be, doing exactly what you want to do. Even with all its challenges. Um if the Lord is telling you, calling you away from your job, one thing to really make sure it's the voice of the Lord and not you or the enemy is you have to be very, very level headed, you have to have a sound mind. Not only is that going to be discerned through prayer, but also really examine self. And it's like, is there anything within me that I don't like, like where I might be trying to project my feelings onto this idea that God has spoken to me? Because that was my fear. That was my first fear. Um, it's funny, like sometimes people make fun of me, like, people who don't get this kind of stuff, they'll make fun of me for like saying like I hear from the Lord. And it's like, my first thought typically is, no, I'm probably wrong in this. Like I don't just like, oh yep, Lord spoke. Now I have a better gauge of it. But before that, I was very skeptical. I was very like, nah, but let me like really unpack this a lot. But anyways, so you really need to make sure that it is him, and it isn't just your internal dialogue. Um, if you have a dissatisfaction in your job that isn't tied to just overall, like you just kind of don't want to be there or whatever the case is, like say like you have an issue with a coworker, or um I don't know, like whatever else could come up. that could be more of a personal thing, most likely. It could be the enemy, but you have to know the difference between when God is saying, yeah, I need you to step away from there. And it will always be because he has something else for you, something better, something different. Versus, I just don't really like this and I just want God to give me something new. Because he will make sure that wherever, no matter like what comes next, that humility is perfected in you to where he'll keep you there. You're saying, oh, I don't like this, I don't like that. Just like with me, like he kept me there, even though I didn't like it. I threw a tantrum. I'm like, I'm gonna quit, blah blah blah, like all this stuff when I first got to my job. So yeah, you have to really make sure that it's of him, and discern that by just being as level-headed as possible. Make sure you've thought about, okay, is there anything that's like bothering me to the point where I would be like, yeah, I could leave if I wanted to. Another thing to keep in mind is that, honestly, and this is pretty indicative of whenever God gives you an instruction, it won't feel that good. It won't be the most obvious of answers. And I equate that idea to the verse that says, my ways are not your ways, my thoughts are not your thoughts. And also the verse that talks about like, behold, I'm doing a new thing. Don't you perceive it? I've never, I don't think there's ever been a time when the Lord has said something, instructed me, I should say, where it's like, okay, fine, I'll do that. Like, normally it comes with, at the very least, because he's speaking from the spiritual side of things, he's seeing it from that angle. So at the very least, there's this resistance because it's like, okay, but I'm not seeing the evidence of that. I'm here in the natural and nothing is making, like, what you're telling me isn't aligning. That's at the very least, you know. Um, and never mind the fact that the enemy, so this is something he revealed to me before I came on here, is that he has plans and the enemy has plans. And the enemy's plans, God's plans are to prosper you and to advance his kingdom, bring him glory. The enemy's plans is the exact opposite of that. Once the Lord is speaking to you and trying to get some plans set up for you, the enemy's plans are locked in on trying to stop those plans, halt those plans, whatever. So when the Lord speaks, you will get resistance. Sometimes that resistance looks like, did God really say? Maybe he didn't really mean it like that. Sometimes it looks like that. Sometimes it looks like a really nice, favorable situation. God may tell you to leave, and you're like, that day you get a raise. That day, whatever happens, turns around. You've been hoping for some sort of change, and then that day they authorize it in your office, and they're like, yep, we're going to go through with your idea. And it's like, Jesus, like, you're just like, what do I do with that? So be careful of that too, because the enemy doesn't always do things in a negative way, in a negative light. He doesn't always do it like that. Sometimes it's him trying to bring you a so-called blessing. And if you aren't discerning, you will fall for it. Counterfeit blessing. So that's all I can think of off the top of my head, some things to keep in mind. Because I know, like, another thing was that when believed that the Lord had called me away from my job, I had done crazy research. I'm like, okay, this person says this is their testimony. I'm seeing this pattern here. Like, that is kind of similar. But, like, what if he's not telling me? And to be honest, deep down, I knew that he was, but I just didn't. I had too much carnality, and I wasn't, meaning I was listening too much to my internal dialogue and the logic and ultimately the enemy rather than listening just to God. Now I'm just like, I don't have time for that. It's like, if he spoke, I don't care. It won't make any sense. Fine, whatever. But before I wasn't like that. So, you know, I'd really encourage you to have a sound mind in this so that you can actually hear from him. Um, yeah, I remember actually, like, at my first job, there was someone who I had asked for some advice because she was a little bit older than me and I knew she was a Christian. And I said, like, I feel like God is trying to move me away from this job. And I mean, it was just like, well, where are you going to go? I mean, you know, he calls us to be good stewards. Like, you know, leaving a job in this economy is not being a good steward, all this stuff. And it's like, I mean, I get what she was saying, and she wasn't. Oh, that scared me. Sorry, there's a hummingbird outside my window. I get what she was saying, and she wasn't wrong in that. That was her level of revelation. Um, it's really difficult if you're someone who wants to live by the Spirit because God will always be wanting to do a new thing and moving in ways that have not been seen, and people don't get it. They don't know how to interpret it. you all people Not all people, most people will unfortunately not get it, and because of that most people will unfortunately discourage you. So, but once again, you can miss the hand of God by not being sensitive, the move of God, the communication of God, the blessing of God. So, but I remember that made me sit and thinking, I'm like, am I in the wrong, am I not being a good steward, like all this stuff. It's like you can't take in all of that. If you know that someone has not lived a life where they're continually being led by the Spirit, they've gotten into some sort of routine and that's just how it is, they're not good people to go to for advice if you want to move and live by the Spirit. Um, I think that's all the main points that I can think of. But one of the biggest takeaways is, yeah, don't just like up and leave and be like, oh, I know God told me to get up out of here. No, 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 no. Make sure you really have prayed. God is willing to meet you where you're at if you're willing to give him something. I was willing. Some people ask, like, well, how do you, like, how do you have like these communications from God? Or like, how is it fair that like you can ask sometimes and he'll speak to you and other times he won't, whatever the case is. He knows what you need. He knows where your heart is at. He knows where you're at spiritually, whatever. There are times when I have asked God for a confirmation knowing full well what he was saying. There were times when I absolutely needed another confirmation. He is willing to meet you there if that's what you really need, but you also have to understand that he knows better. If you don't really need it and it's just a faith issue, like you just are like holding back faith, but you know deep down what you need to do, he's most likely not going to keep giving you confirmations because it's not what you need, and it's not even what you're asking. Something, it's not like genuine, it's not as genuine as you think that it is, because there are some people who it's like, okay, well, that was a good sign, but like maybe that was a coincidence. Can you give me another sign? Okay, that was also a good sign, but like, I don't know, whatever. And they'll keep coming up with stuff. So, because I used to kind of be like that, to be honest. So yeah. um so um if you're wondering, I would just really, really, really be prayerful, really seriously be prayerful above all else, because no one will know like um you and the Lord. No one knows what the plans that he has for you, like you and him. I think that's it. So yeah, my book. If you want to get it, will be available on Amazon. I'll put the links up. Um, and I will be increasing the price starting tomorrow. I think maybe on Monday. Yeah, I'll do it on Monday. So you can get it for like 4 something, or it'll be 8 something next week. But if you would like to, I'd appreciate it. And if not, God bless anyways. That's all I have for you. Um, yeah, I don't have anything else.